So before diving into Zootopia 2, I feel it was only right to give my thoughts on the first film. And TLDR, I love the first film. It's one of my personal favorite Disney movies. It's super nostalgic for me. And fun fact, the song from the first movie, Try Everything, was actually one of my fifth grade graduation songs that I sung for fifth grade chorus. So yeah, lots of nostalgic memories attached to this film, but even looking at the first film without the nostalgic attachment and from an adult lens, I think it still holds up very well and has good themes and messages about racial profiling, discrimination, and just a bunch of topics that I feel still apply very well today. And I do know that is a big complaint of the film is that there are some people who don't like how overt themes the film's themes and messages were, but personally I think they were handled very well, and it feels like a good intro to the young demographic who are now starting to learn about these movies. I mean, when the first film came out, I was 10, 11, so you know, leaving elementary school, going into middle school, and that's really when I was first introduced to themes of racism and racial profiling and stuff like that. So I personally don't have an issue with how the first film presents its themes and messages. But aside from that, I think it's just also a great film that parodies buddy cop films well. And of course, the heart of the first movie is the relationship between Nick and Judy. We'll talk more about them soon, but as for this film, the second film, I really loved it. Now, as I mentioned before, I was also quite hesitant about it because I personally think Disney hasn't really been making that many bangers comparably to the 2000s or the 90s, which has the Disney Renaissance. And even the 2010s, like you got bangers like the first Zootopia, Tangled, which is my personal favorite Disney movie ever, Moana, Big Hero 6, and even Frozen, which I know is pretty overrated, but the first Frozen film is still a good movie if you ask me. But yeah, this decade really, excluding Pixar, the only good Disney film we got was Encanto. But yeah. However, I do feel like even though the quality in films haven't been that good, they have gotten better. Like, I think Wish is better than Strange World, even though both aren't very good. And Moana 2 is an improvement over Wish, which again, not very good. And Zootopia 2 is definitely the best one this decade so far, aside from Encanto. And even excluding the fact of the quality of Disney films, Disney sequels from the main animation studio hasn't been that well either. I mean, Ralph Breaks the Internet was very mediocre. Frozen 2 was so rushed and half baked. And I think that's really it for the main studio sequels. Oh, and Moana 2. Yeah. It wasn't that bad, but it also was clearly meant to be a TV show that just got forced to become a movie. Um, and there is also The Rescuers Down Under, but I haven't seen it. But it is unanimously always ranked last when you do a Disney Renaissance ranking because I'm guessing it just wasn't anything memorable. With that being said, Zootopia 2 is able to overcome both these problems. Like being a good standalone movie, I mean, you would likely have to watch the first one to understand it, but it's a good as a standalone. It does recap the first film in the opening, and also it's a great and good Disney sequel. And also, of course, I forgot to mention there is also the direct to DVD sequels, but those are a whole story for another day. But yeah, right off the bat, I was a bit confused on why the events of this movie is only taking place a week after the first film. Like, I feel like we could have done at least a year or something, but on rewatch, I gained to appreciate the fact that it is only a week, just to kind of see, like, Nick and Judy gradually develop and see, like, what the next case is to solve. And yeah, I think it being said only a week works because we can still see them taking what they learned from the first film, but also still having to learn new things. Kind of how with Joy in Inside Out 2, the time skip was only a year and a half, I think, because the first Inside Out film ends with Riley turning 12, and then in the second film, she's 13. So throughout the film, we got to see Joy still being grown and developed from the first film, but also still having to learn and adapt. And I think pretty much Nick and Judy do the same thing. Like, Judy is definitely more open and accepting, like not having any internal bias or whatever. And Nick is obviously not a con artist anymore and, on the right side of things. Well, he never did anything that bad, but, Nick clearly shown grown, and throughout the film, we see him gradually becoming more, you know, emotionally vulnerable and getting more in touch with his feelings when for most of his life he's always been guarded and never really knew how to express them. But yeah, and also I will say this movie is pretty fast paced. Like, I feel like it goes by way faster than the first film does, even though I think it is longer than the first film. But regardless, I feel like everything was still timed out nicely. Like, nothing ever felt forced or like it needed to slow down a bit. Like, pacing wise, this movie did really well. And to talk about the characters, guess we'll start with the stars of our show, Nick and Judy. What I love about the film is how their relationship is still a central focus, and it still remains the heart of the second film, like the last film did. And yeah, I love their dynamic throughout the film. And I feel like I do need to address, of course, how Nick and Judy do have a strong following. There are fans out there who, ship them and want them to be a romantic couple, and other fans who think they just like them as platonic besties. Whereas it's pretty down the middle for me. I think as a kid, I definitely shipped them a lot. I remember just getting excited over fan art and fan edits of them back in back in middle school. Whereas as I've grown, I do ship them. I still do ship them sometimes, but I also am content with the fact that if Disney doesn't want to go the romantic route with them, I would be fine with them being besties as well, since it's always nice to see a platonic boy-girl friendship in media, since you don't always have to go the route of man and woman falling in love, because despite what When Harry Met Sally tells you, men and women can be friends. However, there is still a part of me that does ship them, and honestly, after this movie, I might be leaning more towards Hops Wild shippers, I think is their ship name, because honestly, and the main reason why I wanted to release this in February, did anyone else feel like Zootopia 2 was a rom-com? Like, I feel like they definitely played more into the romantic undertones of their relationship. I mean, right away, the movie starts off with them going undercover as a couple. And even having, like, a child, which, spoiler, it's not their actual kid. They're not actually a couple. This is just an undercover story. And their son is Finnick from the last movie. Um, and aside from that opening, there were many more moments, like how when they infiltrated the gala, you have just the way Nick was looking at her, and that whole moment before they entered the gala was very like rom-com moment. And then there was like a blink and you'll miss it moment where Nick seemingly gets jealous at Paubert, who we'll talk more about later. But yeah. And then, of course, there's the grand old confession scene near the end of the film where Nick confesses that he cares about Judy and says that she's the best thing that ever happened to him. Like, that scene got me. And yeah, it's undoubtedly my favorite scene in the film. But yeah, I felt like Nick and Judy's relationship was done really well. Um, they don't kiss in this movie because I think the creators are still playing up the whole ambiguous nature of their relationship where, you know, it can be seen as a strong friendship still, but it can also still really play into the romantic elements. Oh, and there is also a scene where they're in like the reptile district and they're on a boat, and the walrus, I believe it is the creature they're riding on the boat with, says like, "Oh, it's your anniversary," and Bella Notte starts playing. So there are definitely more like romantic hints, I'd say, than the last movie. But again, I feel like it can go either way. But yeah, Nick and Judy were obviously best part of the movie, like always. And even putting aside their whole will they, won't they dynamic, I feel like, man, I need a stronger tablet. Anyway, I feel like I like their conflict in this movie, how they just want to prove themselves as partners. And it is actually like a believable conflict. Like, I understand Judy wanting to solve this case in order to make the world a better place, which has been like her whole ideal motive throughout the last movie. And then Nick, you know, still being new to the police force, is like, this case is more dying for, and not wanting to lose Judy because Judy was the first person to ever believe in him. And yeah, like, their falling out didn't even really feel like a falling out, but regardless, it's one of the best instances of the main characters splitting up before the climax trope. But yeah, Nick and Judy, great as ever. And oh yeah, also, I will say it now, there is a post-credit scene, and Judy is basically listening to the carrot recorder of when Nick said "love you" to her. He just says that "love you, partner," so take with that what you will. And she repeats it a lot before she gets interrupted by her neighbors. And then the scene ends with a feather dropping, which seems to be a strong hint that Zootopia 3 will happen, but we'll talk more about that at the end of the video. But yeah, Nick and Judy were great, and what I loved about this film is how there are new characters introduced, but they still utilize the old characters well. Like Clawhauser from the last movie, he was still as goofy as ever, but he still actually was able to help during the climax when Nick needed help locating Judy by the weather walls. And then also Bellwether made an appearance, but I am glad that they didn't reuse her as the villain. And I love her little Silence of the Lambs reference, even though I haven't seen that movie yet. But yeah, she was fun, and it was great to see her again because she is a funny character. And then as for the other characters, Chief Bogo, I feel like they utilized well. I mean, I love Idris Elba, so it was great to hear his voice again, because his voice is just so iconic in Zootopia movies and as Knuckles in the Sonic series. But yeah, I feel like they were able to have Chief Bogo have like a strong enough presence, but also be able to take him out of the movie when he gets poisoned by the snake venom. And even Gazelle, who is voiced by Shakira, was utilized well. As for her new song, I do like it. I mean, I don't think it'll top Try Everything, but it was still a good, fun song that I like jamming out to in the theater. Although some people did say it sounded a lot like the original song from the last movie, which It kind of does, but it's still a fun song. And I also loved Gazelle's whole beef with the zebras, or the zebros, whatever they were. All because like they accidentally knocked into one of her tiger background dancers. Like Gazelle is a ride or die. And I think that's it for old characters. Oh, Flash, of course. Flash was real MVP because without him, they wouldn't have gone to Judy and Gary in time. And I just love his running gag of how the he's a sloth, but he's able to drive fast because he can't get his foot off the gas pedal. that. But yeah, as for new characters, I was a bit confused on like the addition of the new cops. Like there are like these warthogs, or yeah, no, I think they're warthogs. There was a duo of warthogs, a duo of zebras, the zebros, and it just makes me wonder where they were last film. But regardless, I thought that they were fun additions. I especially love how Hogbottom, there was a moment you could see she felt bad for having to like almost put Judy down. But yeah, I felt like they were fun additions. Definitely added some funny bits, but the zebras, they're just like roll your eyes in laughter, kind of funny. Speaking of, I do feel like another advantage of this movie is that the stakes are higher than the last movie, because when you think about the last movie, like Judy and Nick could have easily walked away from this situation, but here they were framed for the poisoning of Chief Bogo, and so they're now like on the run. And yeah, the lynxes are the big bad of this movie, because what happens in this movie is we learned that the lynxes, who were thought to be the original founders of Zootopia, they were not. It was actually Gary's great-grandmother who founded and designed like the weather walls for Zootopia, but the lynx's great-grandfather ended up hiding the truth from her and even poisoning the maid when she tried to expose him. And so then snakes were framed, and that's the reason why all reptiles have been banished from Zootopia. And so yeah, it's very more high stakes scenario, since Nick and Judy are on the run and are going to be like put down if they are caught. And also the lynxes plan to like banish all reptiles and expand like the Tundra Town Wall to the reptile district, so no reptiles are ever caught in Zootopia again. And yeah, like Judy nearly dies in this movie, Nick nearly dies in this movie. It's like very intense, but it's good because we love high stakes in animated movies. And speaking of the twist villain, it has been established that the lynxes are villains in this movie, but there's this new character, Paubert, voiced by Andy Samberg, legend. And he starts off as being like awkward, dorky, kind of like the outcast of his family. But then during the climax, after they turn on like the lighthouse and see where, the buried Tundra Town, or no, the buried Reptile Town district is, he ends up stabbing Judy in the neck with snake venom, showing that he was a big bad, just like his family. And low-key, that had me shocked. Like, I kid you not, the 4 times I see this movie, my jaw still dropped every time we got to that reveal. Like, it was executed so well, and the fact that he still tried to act all awkward and dorky even after the reveal is crazy. But yeah, definitely the best twist villain from Disney since King Candy from the first Wreck-It Ralph movie. And yeah, this was a better twist than Hans, than Bellwether, because genuinely it wasn't something you expect. I mean, to be fair, I was kind of expecting him a bit, because part of me was like, he did seem a bit too nice, but then as the movie went on, I kind of like forgot about that detail. But also, I did very well know that he was the guy who initially helped Gary at first. And yeah, I feel like whether you saw that twist coming or not, like that moment where it is finally revealed is very shocking because you're like, whoa, he went straight for it. Like he is savage. But yeah, F Pobbert for almost killing our trio. And then, yeah, I mean, as for the other new characters, I do love Nibbles and Gary, but it does dive into my only complaint of the film. I don't really have that many complaints with it, but my main complaint does have to do with Gary. Now, I love Gary. I love Kihui Kwan, if I'm pronouncing his name right, but love him. He's a great actor, and he definitely works well for the voice of Gary. But my problem is that I feel like the promotion for this movie made it seem like we were going to get more of Gary throughout it, because really Gary only appears a bit in the opening, then he doesn't reappear till the later half of the movie. And yeah, I feel like we got to see more of Nibbles Mablestick, who is the beaver with the podcast. I feel like we got to see more of her than Gary, which I didn't have a problem with because I love both of them as characters. Like, Gary is so sweet and the best snake ever, and this is coming from someone who hates snakes. And Nibbles, I feel like, definitely gives off like that trope of a character who initially wasn't supposed to have that much screen time, but they gave it to her anyway because she is that funny. But yeah, it's kind of switched where I thought that Nibbles would only appear in a few scenes, whereas Gary would appear more often, but it just happened vice versa. And I still feel like what we got to see of Gary was nice, but I would have liked a little bit more of him. Especially considering that it was his family that was the founders of Zootopia. And also it just kind of falls a bit flat in the climax. Like, the climax is still emotional when he's like crawling to Judy and saying, like, you did help me and you're my best warm-blooded friend. Like, that moment still hit and it was still emotional, but it's also like him and Judy didn't really interact until like much later when she escapes with Gary and Pobbert. And even like Nick himself doesn't properly get introduced or meets Gary until the second climax that happens where they're going after Pobbert. Like, Nick even makes a joke of this, saying like, oh, the snake is Gary, got it. So yeah, I feel like Gary kind of needed to establish himself with Nick and Judy more, but otherwise I still love what we got of Gary and hope we get to see more of him if a third film happens. And then yeah, as for Nibbles, I found her to be very funny. I loved her and Nick's dynamic and how like Nick was just so annoyed with her, but they ended up becoming friends by the end. Like, their prison escape scene, 10 out of 10. And how like Nibbles was able to get Nick to open up saying how he doesn't want to lose Judy, which just makes me melt every time. But yeah, and I thought the ending was really sweet with how they're all celebrating in the reptile district. And yeah, like the carrot pen breaking, it was a sad moment, but they also kind of did that to themselves because of their bickering. But it reminds me a lot of how in Ralph Breaks the Internet, Vanellope purposely breaks the candy like heart necklace. Except in Zootopia 2, that kind of moment was done better because, yeah, just better writing in general. And I also forgot, like, the Mr. Big character and his daughter. I feel like they were utilized pretty well with how they initially wanted to help Judy and Nick, like, escape and go drink pina coladas. Or pina koalas. But yeah. Oh, and also another, like, romantically undertoned moment is when Nick and Judy go to couples well, not couples, but partners in crisis therapy, which is essentially like couples therapy, and how, like, the first scene we see, like, Judy suppressing her discomfort in front of Nick, and then by the end of it, like, she allows Nick to talk and saying, like, we're all better, Zoot getter. And yeah, and then another new character that was fun was Mayor Winddancer, who was the new mayor for Zootopia. I don't understand why, like, Mayor Lionheart wasn't reinstated, because, I don't know, I guess he still imprisoned those animals by the end of it, but I don't know, I thought he'd be reinstated as mayor, but I guess they couldn't afford or get J.K. Simmons to come back, but regardless, he was a fun character. I love Patrick Warburton voice acting. He's just always hilarious. And isn't it crazy how this is like 25 years after The Emperor's New Groove? Like, that's insane. And it's fun getting to hear his voice again, because honestly, I feel like I don't see Patrick Warburton in much. I mean, I don't watch Family Guy or American Dad. But yeah, it's just fun to hear his voice again, and I feel like he did a lot of humor to his character. Like, the whole running gag where he was a famous actor, and he does, like, these silly faces. and of course his catchphrase where he's like, you say justice is dead, I say nay. I just love Patrick Warburton in animation, what can I say? And yeah, I feel like his character was utilized well. Like, how he didn't want to go hunt down Judy and Nick, but he was pressured by the Lynxes, which is another thing. Like, I know the Lynxes are part of the founding family of Zootopia, but why were they in charge of the mayor election? Shouldn't that be someone else? I don't know. And yeah, the ending was fun. I love how Nick regifted her the pen, and it's just like the fact that he could have easily gotten her a new recorder or new pen recorder, but he, like, specifically went back to that spot and gathered every piece and put it together bit by bit. And of course the love you partner was very sweet, but he did also make a joke saying he's still Nick, so he's only saying it once a decade before Judy was able to get a recording of him saying love you. And yeah, they're definitely teasing the Wild Hop shippers for sure. And sorry guys. And also, may I say, like, the movie does end with them going to the Burning Man Gazelle concert, and their pockets must be stacked. Well, not that stacked, because they're both living in, like, one-bedroom apartments, and Nick specifically his apartment is underneath, like, this elephant gym. But still, they must be rich to be able to go to one Gazelle concert one week, and then the next week be able to go to a Burning Man concert. I guess they get paid decently well. But yeah, I think that's all my thoughts on the movie. I'm trying to think what else is there. Oh, the chase scene at the beginning was a lot of fun. And yeah, since they featured Bellwether so much, and also during the prison break scene, Nick ends up releasing every prisoner that was in jail, so it doesn't, and we did see Bellwether trying to take a getaway flight away from Zootopia, but I think she ends up back in jail. But since they did show her a good amount, it does make me wonder, is she gonna, like, come back and be a villain again? Or maybe the third film we'll see, like, Paubert and the other Lynxes teaming up with Bellwether, and that'd be crazy. And yeah, so really my only complaints fell with Gary's, like, I guess Gary's writing, and Oh yeah, another complaint I do have is as much fun as I had with this movie and did get some laugh out loud moments, I think overall it just isn't as funny as the first film, which isn't a big complaint, but it's just the first film was so funny with like the DMV scene, Nick's witty remarks, and other stuff, but this one, like, I still laughed at Nick's remarks and also laughed at like the wind dancer, Mayor Wind. Am I saying his name right? Wind dancer, but the horse mayor, and like Nibbles. But otherwise, I just don't think it is that funny as the first film. But I still laughed a bit, and I, of course, still had fun with it. And I also liked how it did take itself more seriously. Not that it needed to take itself seriously, but I'm glad that it prioritized the emotional core just like the first film did. And yeah, it does tease itself for a third movie with the post-credit scene, so you do have to sit through those credits to get to it, which I did every time I saw it. But yeah, I love how it not only gives us a Nick and Judy like hint of what could come for their relationship, but it also hints that birds might be coming for the third movie, which again is another genius idea because like how in the first movie we saw no reptiles, we have yet to see a bird in Zootopia, so I'm curious to see like how that will come. But I think the writers are still like developing the potential third movie. It hasn't been greenlit yet, but I did hear some talks that it might come out in like 2030s, which is 4 to 5 years from now. But yeah, either way, if it happens, I will be sad because I love this movie so much. I love the series so much. So yeah, I think that's all I have to say regarding Zootopia 2. And now we're just gonna go to final thoughts.